Okay, what's up? I'm Mateo and newcomer here, Matt, but he's also an NBA head, so he's a Nuggets fan, and we got some banter. So Mateo, Matt, break down the last Lakers Nuggets game.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll start off, Matt. So the Lakers and Nuggets played on Thursday. Marquee matchup that they were setting up. Lakers ended up winning 114-93. It was I'll just go through a little description. It was a pretty down game for the Lakers in the first half. They looked pretty crap offensively and pretty average defensively. And it looked like it was going to come down to the wire. If not, they would be battling back from a deficit from the Nuggets because the Nuggets are just shooting the hell out of the ball. But then there was a couple runs in the third quarter, one particularly at the end of the third, where the Lakers defense just went fucking nuts. And then they ended up carrying that momentum into the fourth. And what could have been easily a close game ended up being a 20-point win for the Lakers. So I don't know. Did you saw the game, Matt? What did you think of what you saw?
Yeah, you covered it pretty well. My team had a great first half, and then the dreaded third quarter for us hit. And I mean, there was one play that basically encapsulated how the second half went for Denver. I believe, I can't remember which mark it was at, but there was a 4-on-2 fast break at one point, and Porter got the ball at the top of the 3-point line, and he should have just kept driving and either gotten the foul or just dunked it. And instead, he rose up for the three and got it blocked from behind I think it was Kuzma who blocked it. And then it was just a great hustle play on the Lakers' part. They managed to knock it out on us, and then that just was another momentum shifter. And that basically was just one example of how the whole second half went for Denver. And Denver's actually struggled in the third quarter all year long. I'd have to look into it. If we're not one of the worst third quarter teams, I'd be willing to bet money we are the worst third quarter team in the league. And we've been getting complacent with leads too often in the third this year, and you can get away with it against maybe teams like Utah and whatnot, but against the defending champs, especially the champs who have the number one ranked defense in the league, it's not going to work. And LeBron went crazy, and we just had no answer for him, of course. And a little surprising, the post matchup between Davis and Jokic, the two big men who are stars, really canceled each other out too, and not in a good way. Both had relatively pedestrian games, so that was kind of unfortunate to see from a fan perspective. So
Yeah, it felt like it was going to be a battle of the bigs because Jokic has been playing great. He's been having this MVP buzz and totally deserved. He can fill it up in all the main three categories in the stat sheet, and he's relatively young, getting he's a good age, so it's like how much more can he grow? But he does this thing, man, where I was sold on the Jokic thing because I took him in daily fantasy and I put in DraftKings, they have showdown mode where you can set a captain. I considered setting him as my captain because that'll give you bonus points, but kind of glad I didn't end up placing in the money. But he was so quiet on the night, man, and I don't know. I expected a strong performance from him. And also Davis has been struggling, so I thought he'd make it an issue to have a really good game and get back into his rhythm. Yeah, Davis has been having these struggles lately. And after this game, I'm kind of leaning towards it being mental. He's been dealing with an ankle injury, and then it turned into a quad injury on the same leg. So I thought, okay, he's got some physical things going on. But there is this one play where, dude, he only had 4 points at the half, first of all, and he finished with like 13 on 8 shots, which is just bad for your star. You want your guy to be getting his shots up. But thankfully, the role players really showed out tonight, and we didn't even need a good game from Davis. But yeah, man, I thought we were going to see a much bigger matchup between Jokic and Davis because that's what it was like in the playoffs. That was like a battle of the Titans, man.
Yeah. And Jokic also got into foul trouble in the second half, and he still has that problem where he picks up these stupid fouls and then he gets into foul trouble, and then as a result it kind of handicaps his game the rest of the way. So that was huge for the Lakers and a big bummer for the Nuggets. And then the bench also was terrible for Denver. I think, if I remember right, I think your guys' second unit outscored our second unit by like 20 points because you were getting good contributions from KCP, Kuzma. Trying to think. I want to say Caruso had a few big plays as well too. So,
Yeah, the bench went really hard tonight, and thankfully they were able to cover up for AD, who's been going through it. But you mentioned that one play on Porter Jr. and Kuzma. I remember that exact play, and I freaking loved it because what's funny about Kuzma and Porter Jr., they kind of get at each other.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a thing because they have similar kind of styles, like, finesse and scoring. Kuzma started out as a pure scorer, but he's been becoming a much more all-around. Even Draymond Green tweeted about it, like a winning player in the league. He's not going to get the same amount of shots as he did in his first year or two with the Lakers. So what he's doing, he says, okay, if I'm going to be on the floor, I have to make some kind of contribution. So I'm just going to rebound my ass off. And also I'm going to get better at defending wings, which he was really bad at in his first year or two. And he's really come a long way to become like, an average defender most of the time, or like even really good in stretches.
Yeah.
I thought he had some pretty good stretches on Murray. I think he was defending Murray a couple of times. And Kuzma only finished with 11 points, but he had an amazing game in terms of just contributions to winning. So I was
going to mention that. Yeah, Kuz he played really, like he was doing work in that last game. The past couple games, he's been stepping it up. It's a good step in the right direction.
Absolutely is, man. Yeah. I think he got his extension, which is great. So that gives him some peace of mind. So he'll be with the Lakers for another few years unless they decide to trade him in a good deal. But nice. Kuz is really turning into a really good all-around player. Matt, I wanted to ask you. Oh, go ahead, BK.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just curious, when is the next game? Like, I've noticed a lot of these games, like, a lot of back-to-backs with the same teams. It's very strange. Has it ever been like this? Like, frequently?
It's the COVID season, man. What's actually really weird, I was looking up, when do we play the Celtics again? And they haven't done this before, but they're actually releasing the schedule in 2 parts. So we got the first batch of games before the season started, and we have games up until March, and then it doesn't list the schedule. So I think after the All-Star break or sometime soon, they're going to release part 2 of the schedule. And that's never happened before where we don't know all the games coming off the bat.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. What were you saying?
Oh, yeah, Matt, I wanted to ask you, given that we played each other it was 5 games in the playoffs, what do you think were some differences between this year's Lakers team and last? Did you notice any?
Yeah, honestly, and I kind of predicted this at the beginning of the season after the free agency period. I honestly think this Lakers team might be more dangerous than last year's, which is a scary thought. You guys got younger with your role players, but you still found nice pieces who are veterans like Wesley Matthews and Marc Gasol. Montrezl Harrell seems to be a much better fit with the Lakers than he ever was with the Clippers, surprisingly, which I did not see coming. And we touched on Kuzma already. He's playing up to his contract now, and he's realizing he can affect the game in other ways than just trying to be a pure scorer. So, and of course, and I didn't know this until I watched the game last night. LeBron goes through these weird stretches where I have a year where he's just terrible from 3, and this year he's amazing from 3. I think he's shooting above 40% on 3 for the year, which I did not know. So that is just another dimension you have to respect now, which is going to be very hard to deal with in the playoffs.
Yeah, about LeBron's shooting, dude. There's a crazy thing happening with it. He's still taking the same amount of kind of deep ass threes as he was before, and he's also doing these fall away shots that are in the same spots Kobe used to do it. Yep. But yeah, and they're going in more than I expect. And this is a trend early on in the season. I was like, okay, yeah, LeBron had a few games where he hit some deep bombs, and that just kept happening. I'm like, oh, is this going to be a thing with him? And then the followays started falling, and I'm like, oh shit! If he can get those reliable, then that makes him even more dangerous than he already freaking is.
Yeah, and it'll help his durability and endurance because he won't have to rely on his physicality as much now, especially at his age. So yeah,
I know. Yeah. And with this year's Laker team, I think what's really devastating about them is they have some more scoring options with Trez and Dennis Schroeder, but their perimeter defense got even better because we have Caruso who's a good perimeter defender, and we have KCP who hustles his ass off, and he's good at staying in front of wings and stuff. And Schroeder is just going to be a better defender all around than Rondo because that dude is fast, man.
Yeah.
THT, who we're starting to find minutes for, he had like 17 points and some really good drives to the hoop on the night. He has a 7'1" wingspan, and he's like 6'3", 6'4". which is absurd. You don't even necessarily have to move that fast if you have that much length. You can kind of bother guys by just stretching your arms out and putting a hand in their face. So this team's really strong on the perimeter now, but there are still some question marks in the paint, and I wonder how that's going to play out in the playoffs, especially in a matchup like Denver. So,
yeah. And like Marc Gasol, he's not the Marc Gasol of old. We're starting to kind of see signs of age catching up to him this season. Not just this game. I've kind of noticed some other games I've watched of the Lakers where he's like just obviously slower than he used to be, but he's just, making some plays that he used to not make, and like really bad plays. And yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. Maybe you guys will hit the buyout market towards trade deadline and get, your JaVale McGee type of player, and that'll really bolster your guys' front court as well. So
yeah, that's definitely something that we're paying attention to, because when Mark got signed, we were like, oh, great, Mark. Yeah, he can shoot threes. He can facilitate in the high post, and he can defend the paint, and he can rebound. And so far what I've seen is he's kind of getting his ass whooped on the boards, and he's not blocking shots as well as I expected. And then I remember all the people talking on Twitter about, oh, Gasol is washed. Like, you got washed, Gasol. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of seeing stretches of it. So we definitely gotta shore up our team. With the Nuggets, though, are you guys looking? Is there any players that you're looking to add on to bolster up your weaknesses, or what do you think about the makeup of your team?
I would really love it if we added a solid wing defender. I don't know who that would be.
You guys have Harris, though, but you think you need another?
I think we need someone who's got a little bit more length. As great as Harris is, he's a little undersized.
True.
We need someone like losing Torrey Craig this offseason really hurt us in that regard, because we need someone to, obviously guys like KD and LeBron and Kawhi, you're never going to stop fully, but we need someone to at least make life difficult.
Exactly.
Guys, especially being in the West. So I don't know, maybe, get someone like a Trevor Ariza type of player would be really nice for us. And then, we got a bunch of new pieces on the bench that we're trying to get cohesiveness with right now. So that also plays a factor into it. And then, of course, I'm sure you guys are on NBA Twitter. I'm sure you're hearing all the talk about, where should Bradley Beal go, even though he came out and said he wants to stay with Washington. So, of course, everyone's trying to kind of speak Bradley Beal to us into existence, which is kind of funny, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So,
oh yeah, we were even talking about Bradley Beal.
We were.
I was actually saying me and Matt, because we've talked about Beal trades for a while, and that he's always like, if he can find some way on the Nuggets, then I would love that. But yeah, Bradley Beal will go on good with so many teams, man.
Murray is probably a better player in the playoffs than Beal. Yeah, like Beal seems just like a regular season type of all-star, but in the playoffs, I don't know.
I think Beal would, if given the opportunities, I think he'd really thrive in the playoffs. He's got that dog mentality.
Okay, that's interesting, guys. Usher us into the next matchup between Lakers and Nuggets. Break it down for us.
Yeah, so the Lakers will play the Nuggets on February 14th, Valentine's Day, and we're going to be in Denver. So maybe the Nuggets will have that elevation that they always do with the they'll have that advantage with the elevation that they usually do. So I think we're going to get the Nuggets are going to be a little pissed that they end up losing by 20 that time. So I think we're going to get a stronger effort out of them. I think the Lakers are going to know that, but we'll see if they're tired, because this team does get pretty tired. And we've seen a couple games like against the Pistons where their legs will just die. But I think given the fact that they're the Nuggets, we played a good playoff series with them, they'll respect them. So I think that's going to be another one that goes down to the wire. You got any thoughts on that Valentine's Day matchup, Matt?
Yeah, you kind of hit all the points. I don't think we'll see a 20-point, win from either side. I think it'll actually go down to the wire this time, like we were expecting from this game. And I do think we'll try to get out more on the fast break, being at home a lot more than we did this past game. And I do think Jokic will kind of. I'm not saying he's not one of those players who really cares about hearing about the MVP conversation or the stats matchup with like Embiid and LeBron.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as that kind of guy either.
But I think he'll mainly bounce back just because he'll know he played poorly this game, and so he'll have something to prove and kind of put his name back in the ring for the MVP race race at the same time. And I expect a better game from Murray too. You know, Murray, these type of matchups with the Lakers, these need to be Murray type of games, because, you know, the Davis and Jokic matchup, they're going to cancel out. It seems like no matter what, whether it seems like when one has a great game, the other has a great game, or if one has a really pedestrian game, the other one also doesn't really play as well, like we saw this past game. So we need to Murray needs to realize he's got a bit of an advantage on the perimeter, and I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive with his shots. So, yeah, and hopefully we'll have Harris back by then as well, and that will bolster our defense. So,
yeah, the Murray matchup is going to be key. So you'll have two guys that are coming off. Well, Murray had a so-so game. He had some stretches where he got some good scores, but he was 7 of 17 from the field with 20 points. And I know consistency is always a thing with Murray, especially in the regular season, but me and BK talk about this. When Murray sets his mind to it, he's dangerous. And I think we have some more weapons to throw at him. We got Dennis Schroeder on the perimeter now and THT to bother him with that length. But if he gets going, man, we saw it in the playoffs. There were just certain games where he's just hitting these wild shots and taking these super deep heat check threes.
Mm-hmm.
I used to slander the shit out of the Nuggets when they before they got in the playoffs, and, you know, they just got that 2 seed. But they're for real. I respect Murray's playoff ability, and I respect Jokic's too. So I'm looking forward to that February 14th game too.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, Matt, before we sign off?
No, I'm just looking forward to the All-Star break, and I'm going to be definitely paying attention to both the Lakers and the Nuggets and seeing what moves they may make as we get closer to the buyout market deadline and the trade deadline. So
Jokic is by far my favorite center. I'm more of a casual fan, but I love Jokic. He's so good. I mean, he just works so hard. Like, he's just a grinder out there. So, yeah, guys, this was awesome. And maybe you'll be back to break down the game in a couple weeks from now, yeah?
yeah,
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. See you guys. Thanks.